Well, welcome. Gosh, I realized right at the last moment I didn't clean my glasses, and that's not a good thing. Let me share my screen. Hang on. There we go. Welcome. As we get started today, let's just see if we can transition. Let's clean these glasses too. Well, gosh, today we're going to talk about changing our career. You know, if we're looking to make a change, it can be very, very stressful. So I thought about how we plan this out. That's the charting your career transition. We're going to think about how we approach a new industry. It will involve a little bit of this, a little bit of chameleoning our way over to the new you. Really not so unlike what I had to do to become who you see today. I'd spent quite a number of years in recruiting. I had decided to leave the recruiting industry, and now what? And I had to come up with what I'm doing now. And yet it's not simply a straight line to get there. You have to fill in the blanks. We're going to tell you a lot more about that story as we go along today. So let's talk about the problems. I object to your lack of industry background. Well, we're going to teach you definitely how to learn how to not take no for an answer. I object to your lack of experience in this role, or many, many other things that you could imagine they could say to us. Or as simply as, well, you can't do that. You've never done that before. Whatever's holding you back, whatever has been stopping you from starting off in a new direction, you can take all of your industry background. You can use it in a very new way in a new industry, but you have to inspire them. That's your job. It's not their job to see what you can do for them. It's your job to remove what is ever blocking their vision and help them see what you can do. We're going to have to get by this system that doesn't work for us, this applying online. You know, that tends to, in almost every case, go to the recruiter or to the HR individual who's got some little checkbox list. Well, you certainly are not going to match that checkbox list. But what you do have to sell is going to be of great interest to the decision maker. So yes, absolutely. Big believer. Let's get ourselves right over to the decision maker. Just like I teach in the LinkedIn lecture. Be sure to watch that. It'll help you a lot. And let's change the equation of diminishing returns simply by changing the rules. I didn't have to apply for this the way they said. I could go right to the decision maker and captivate them. A lot of secrets you may not like along the way, but the biggest thing is this mental block of you can only do whatever you've done before. You've done that. You can do iterations of that forever. You've never done it. Why would I give it to you? You do realize everybody has a very first day in their new profession, no matter what profession that is. Even in your current profession, you had a very first day where you really didn't have the background. Maybe you had a little education, a little foundational indicators, but you really didn't have the background. So whatever you think is holding you back, or whatever other people are saying that is holding you back, or whatever fences we built in our own brain that have boxed us in, let's figure out how to get over that. Put those things up on the shelf and move out of our own way. Now, when we think about changing careers, we sit and think about, well, everybody else will have more experience than I do in that field, probably. But about half the workforce, about half the workforce is only mediocre. I'm going to read this one for you. Of only moderate quality, ordinary, average, middling, middle of the road, uninspired, undistinguished, indifferent, unexceptional, unexciting, unremarkable, run-of-the-mill, lackluster, forgettable, amateur, okay, so, come see, come saw, plain vanilla, fair to middling, no great shakes, not up to much, and bush league. Okay, well, that's not very uplifting. But if that's half of the workforce right now, what do you have to be ahead of almost everybody? Just a little bit tiny better than mediocre. If you simply put a little heart, soul, whatever it is into your function, naturally rise to be the top 1, 2, 3%. So we have to think about these mediocre people and push them aside. Those mediocre people exist in that new direction you'd like to go. And my gosh, even with you out having experience in that direction, you probably bring more to the table than they do, but they may talk a good game. In case you haven't seen me before, John Crant, author, career coach, and speaker, resume and LinkedIn guru as well. So if you're suffering by your career story not really being elevated, being staged correctly, getting the right spotlight and attention, that's a storytelling problem. Most of us we're far too emotionally close to our career journey to really be able to tell it in the very best way. Still truthful, has to be a letter true. We can tell it in a very confessional, dull way, or we could tell it in a maybe much more interesting way that could maybe show us a little bit something else in the background there. If I can get over to the right screen here, sorry about that. So let's move ahead. A couple resources. Of course, my books are pretty good resources, Changing the Rules. Really how to become your own recruiter that looks after one great individual, which is you. Of course, whole roadmap of what to do on your job search, including resume, LinkedIn, even negotiating, even when you get the wrong offer. How do we renegotiate those things? Over on LinkedIn, you can click to some of my articles that will help you in the entire series or in your whole job search. It'll piggyback onto the video lectures I do. They'll also give you some other insights that may not be in those. So do check them out. It'll keep you focused as well. Of course, share those with friends as well. Now, when we get ready to reinvent ourselves, when we get ready to go a new direction, yes, something is probably driving us, some excitement, but we have to go back to the basics. You have to sell yourself against people that are very, very good at what they do, or at least some of them may be very, very good at what they do. So what do you do better, or what will you do better once you get that new direction, new role in the new field? This is about understanding why you either are already or will be a standout in that new direction. And it's going to take a transformation in storytelling. Storytelling gets a bad rap, mostly because we connect up this idea that it's invented or not real if it's storytelling. Well, it's storytelling. You know what a good story is that's all true? It's storytelling. You know what a dull story is that's all true? Something nobody wants to hear. We got to go through a metamorphosis to make sure your career story is exciting. I want you to think of the concept of a lucid dream. If you haven't really thought or heard too much about that idea, it is really the idea that you become aware that you're dreaming in the middle of your dream. I've had lucid dreams before. I think a number of my friends have. Some people never seem to even remember their dreams. But it's really where you become aware that it's a dream, and at least you have the feeling or somehow that you can exert some level of control. That could be over where the story goes or the characters, but you're aware it's a dream and somehow you can shape its direction. I want you to think of your career that way. So if you could shape this immovable or seemingly immovable thing, so who are your target companies, and what are your target or dream jobs that if I could just have that job? Okay, well, let's talk about that. What is that job, and why would you be very good at it? And what do you bring to the table that others potentially do not? Those are all things that could help you quite a bit. What's missing? Boy, when I left recruiting, a little bit more of that story. I had really grown as much as I could grow, learned as much as I could learn over 7 or 8 years. And by that point, they were really underpaying me by a significant amount, which was okay as long as I was still growing, learning. I'm acquiring the knowledge, which is worth the trade-off. But eventually you have to pay me what my contribution's worth, and they really couldn't do that. And spent about a year trying to negotiate to buy the company. President and I were trying to buy the firm from the founder, and founder really just couldn't sign. I totally get that. It happens all the time. It's their identity that they just can't let go. But my train's leaving the station. I got to go. So I'm like, well, I should. They're like, well, we've been grooming you. Hang on. It's like, I mean, I know, but I'm not a member of the family. How long can I wait? So the train had to leave the station. I left really without a plan. Oh my gosh. I knew I didn't really want to do recruiting, because the part of the recruiting I liked was the training, teaching people how to recruit, teaching them how to be better recruiters. What I didn't like was actually being a recruiter on the desk, which is no. How'd you get my number? Take me off your phone. Never call me again. I hate you people. And I've lived to tell after hearing it all. Shy and introverted here, and I've lived to tell. So you can live to tell too. But I had to sit and go, well, what's missing? Oh, this fantasy John has. Well, what's missing? Well, those people have a book. Okay, well, I'm an expert, and I'm a pretty good writer, and I have a lot to share. Check that box on a book. Okay. Well, the other ones have articles, books, and those type of things that are quoted in the media, quoted by experts in the media. They're looked to as an expert. I'm like, well, I am an expert. How do I get these quotes in the media? And you know what I did? I sat down, put 2 hours of homework together devised, working backward, how I could come up with a target list of journalists that only write about what I could share about. And then I came up with the right press release to introduce myself as a new voice in job search, really a few samples, all the things they needed to hear as a potential writer that was looking for a good source, sent it all off one press release at a time and one press release at a time, 50 different journalists, one at a time. Boy, I really did not like that. But I decided that was a piece that was missing. I had to go get some quotes. The other thing that was missing was all these other people seem to give talks in public. So I started up my series and started to talk with a number of organizations. I present, of course, now to the New York Public Library's Job Search Central, New York State Department of Labor, Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program, Harvard Business School Club of New York City, CUNY, and lots of other organizations as well. I went and got the missing pieces. You can go get the missing pieces, but you have to start with this idea that you're a product, or even the visual of the product you imagine, just like I imagined this today. Where do I go get the missing pieces around me that make other people realize I am credible? It's actually small, tiny little changes one at a time that you can go get. This is part of how you take control of the discussion about you. But again, you got to have some idea of what it is you want them to think about your product, especially when we're going in a new direction. No mistake in all of job search is this one you see right here. Oh, I want to be cookie cutter perfect, especially when changing to a new direction. Oh, wait a minute. I don't want to be this. I want to be this. I want to be cookie cutter perfect over here. Well, that's great. That's great. That's great. And it may suit you this time for the change. But if you're cookie cutter perfect, I'm paying you less. I'm paying you less. No, you don't want less. Well, I'll take number 2, take number 5. Doesn't matter. All interchangeable. I'll take less. You probably forgot that you have to not only be cookie cutter perfect, interchangeable, having never potentially done that job before, in the right mix of skills you bring to the table and inspiration you bring to the table, but also you have to paint yourself as somehow different, exceptional, special. That's what you can also do with your prior roles that have nothing to do maybe with the new direction. Let's figure out what you're really excited about. I'll play a short little video. Hopefully the audio does come through today. I sure hope it does. And then this will give you a little bit of inspiration, and we're going to bring it back center stage and talk a little bit more. Let's bring this full center here. Back in 2 minutes.
What makes you itch? What sort of a situation would you like? Let's suppose I do this often in vocational guidance of students. They come to me and say, well, we're getting out of college and we have the faintest idea what we want to do. So I always ask the question, what would you like to do if money were no object? How would you really enjoy spending your life? Well, it's so amazing. As a result of our kind of educational system, crowds of students say, well, we'd like to be painters, we'd like to be poets, we'd like to be writers, but as everybody knows, you can't earn any money that way. Or another person says, well, I'd like to live an out-of-doors life and ride horses. I said, you want to teach in a riding school? Let's go through with it. What do you want to do? When we finally got down to something which the individual says he really wants to do, I will say to him, you do that. And forget the money. Because if you say that getting the money is the most important thing, you will spend your life completely wasting your time. You'll be doing things you don't like doing in order to go on living, that is to go on doing things you don't like doing, which is stupid. Better to have a short life that is full of what you like doing than a long life spent in a miserable way. And after all, if you do really like what you're doing, it doesn't matter what it is, you can eventually you could eventually become a master of it. The only way to become a master of something is to be really with it. And then you'll be able to get a good fee for whatever it is. So don't worry too much. Somebody's interested in everything. And anything you can be interested in, you'll find others in. But it's absolutely stupid to spend your time doing things you don't like in order to go on spending things you don't like and doing things you don't like, and to teach your children to follow in the same track. See, what we're doing is we're bringing up children, educating them to live the same sort of lives we're living, in order that they may justify themselves and find satisfaction in life by bringing up their children, to bring up their children to do the same thing, so it's all wretched no vomit. It never gets there. And so, therefore, it's so important to consider this question: what do I desire?
So, hey there, guys. I wanted you to see that. Thanks to who put that on Facebook. And, I think that's a really interesting piece. We get so wrapped up in have to be on this track, have to be on that track. And as a career coach, I certainly work with a number of people that are dead in the middle of their career, really lost their heart and soul of what they'd like to do, really desiring to do something else. And, sometimes it is a little too late, but most times it's actually not too late. Repurpose and go a new direction. Little inspiration here from one of my favorite all-time movies. Life is a banquet, and most poor suckers are starving to death. If you'd like to see some film that might inspire you, can relieve a little bit of stress of your job search right now, check out the original Auntie Mame. That's with Rosalind Russell, no one else. The reason I mention this is it has every single life lesson, especially in terms of career and job change that might be necessary, as, of course, Auntie Mame has to reinvent herself over and over and over. A lot of great things mixed in between all lines. I hope you check that out. So let's think about how you might sit down and make a laundry list of quite literally everything you've done since the time you started doing something. Maybe you start writing things down and you think they're too little, like the shoplifting monitor you saw there, or working as a cashier, or those kind of things. Or maybe you've been the business owner, or the student, or the retail manager, or maybe you've been a digital service tech. All of these things, capture them, write them down, or maybe a computer services manager, or maybe even a general manager, maybe one of those, who knows, or maybe a recruiter or headhunter, or recruiting trainer, or training program manager, or maybe you've been a VP over a 100 office company, or a founder of 2 companies. Maybe all of those things, but I think you probably realize that every piece of that background is talking about my background. When you begin to put all those pieces together, suddenly they become who I am today. There's no obvious through line with any of these things. I've done all of these things over the course of my career, and I've also become who I am today. Don't let someone else think for yourself. Don't let someone else tell you, you can't get there from here. You can get there from here. It may not be a straight line. You may have to calculate how you get there from here, calculate the missing pieces, but you can get there. Remember, in job search, it's your job to teach them how to select you as the very best individual. I do a lot of work on that, teaching it in my interview intervention lecture. Hopefully you do check that out. But again, back to this, what we were talking about a few minutes ago, this idea that we have to be qualified, capable, interchangeable, and yet somehow different, exceptional. You achieve that by going back and doing a deep dive interview. Now, this is the type of interview you probably felt you were on before, except it's just with you. But this one is one of those things where we're going to dig down, cross-examine, interrogate. We're going to look under the rocks, under the bed, in the closet. We're looking every single place for some part of your story that somehow, got left by the wayside, got flicked away on the, not that, that's too old, something like that. All of those things from every stage of your career. It's not that you're going to use all that material, but you have to recapture it to understand what you should use and what you should not use. There are definitely some of those pieces that you've lost along the way that you need to use, you just don't realize. So when we're thinking of our story, of course, yes, we have to satisfy the capable or qualified, especially going a new direction. And yet the capable or qualified here is really going to be about transferable skills. Did I do project management? Did I manage people? Did I look at budgets? Did I engage with internal clients or outside stakeholders? Or all things that could be repurposed in another direction. But don't miss the two big things here on the bottom. Why is it, are you interesting? And why is it, or what is it that makes you tick? What drives you? Now, those things could have something to do with your work life, could have nothing to do with your work life. And yet those are the main reasons we get hired, assuming they feel we're capable and qualified. Take all of what you discover in your inventory deep dive. Now, when I do this with clients, not a secret, I work with clients helping them reinvent. When I do it with clients, it takes about 90 minutes. I end up with about 8 or 9 pages of notes in addition to all the background materials and everything else that I've been sent. Why don't you simply grab a highlighter and be very, very stingy? Very stingy. Hold that highlighter tight to your vest. And as you look over all that material, what we're trying to do is what is resume worthy or news story worthy. Gets a little touch of the highlighter. What we're looking here for is the drop of perfume, the nuggets of gold, the ruby, diamond, emerald, not the duty, responsibility, dull stuff. Don't highlight that. Don't highlight that. All the rest of your background that is not highlighted has to be negotiated. Does that belong on the new resume? Does that belong on the new LinkedIn profile? Should I be talking about it? You filter it through this singular question. This will help you understand what's really valuable. What would help them know it's the best business decision? This is part of how you're suddenly going to chameleon your way right over to being the new you. Now, we have to know ourselves. We have to know why you're more valuable than the next people that want that job. Hopefully, it's as close to this, close to something you love to do, maybe something you do well or will do well, something you have to be able to get paid to do. Closer to your passion is much, much better than not. This is very close to my passion, what I'm doing, so it makes a big difference. Do you have the skills to do it? What else can you do? And maybe even what are you afraid of can sometimes lead you to what is the right next thing for you. You know, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago before I was making choices in some of my education portions of my life. And I had this one direction I really wanted to go, but there was a requirement, prereq, you know, those prereqs. Prerequisition was a speech class. And somehow I'd gotten all the way into college, never had a speech class before. Incredibly shy and introverted, not what you see today, even though I'm still that person. And but I was determined, I got to take this speech class. I can do it. I can do it. It's just a class. And of course, got in there like most people, absolutely terrified, probably shaking. But I'm a good listener. I can follow a recipe. The teacher was a decent teacher, gave us the recipe of how to put on a successful talk. I simply followed the recipe. It's a recipe. Why don't I put the ingredients in, see how it works? Now, the few caveats was like everybody else, or like the smarter ones, I grabbed onto that podium so firmly that I could relax a little bit while I have a death grip on the podium, mostly so you don't see my hands shaking like this. That also helps my voice be a little more steady. And then I did a few interactive things, just like the recipe called for. And when I got all done, I went to the back and I felt like just upchucking, of course. I'm like, I'm going to just lose my lunch here. And some of the other students were like, oh my gosh, that was so good. That was so good. That was so good. I'm like, are you people sick? I just did that. I was inside of it. I know that wasn't very good. But you know what? Compared to the others, it actually wasn't bad at all because I followed the recipe. And of course, over time, you have to give yourself permission and exercise those skills, get very, very good at what you do. So as terrified as I was, could never have imagined being a public speaker. Someone had said, well, you know, you're going to be a public speaker, John. I'm like, no, never happening in this lifetime. Sometimes what we're afraid of really points you in the right direction. Now, this is right off of Facebook, been floating around there for a number of years. Just another way to think of it. The closer you get to that bliss point in the middle where there's a little bit of everything overlapping, that will get you into a very, very sweet spot where you really may love what you do. When you love what you do, it's really not work. It may take up a number of hours, but it will never really feel like work. Plus, we have to add to that the idea of which employers are going to benefit most by hiring you. And that's not so much looking at your title and that kind of stuff. It's really thinking about those transferable skills plus your passion for a new area that can be used in a very new way. So think about that, because as you approach someone in the hiring process, it's a dating process. So if they benefit most, they definitely may want to speak with you, and they may be much more open to giving you a shot to transition, because they could hire the same people from the competitors that are doing the same thing, that probably bring their bad habits and bad attitude and who knows what other bad things with them. Or you could have this all new, excitingly minted person to jump into this new direction with all this wonderful skill and a passion for your company. Same old bad taste from the competitor, or someone new and exciting. So don't forget the how are you interesting, what makes you tick. Now, a lot of chameleons up here. You know, this is an important question, by the way, to answer for everyone. Who are you? What makes you tick? Why are you interesting? I often talk about the fact that it could have to do with your work life, could have nothing to do with your work life. Had a client about, 3-4 Octobers ago, end of October, just finishing up the resume, LinkedIn profile, all the new stuff all done. And suddenly they go to me, about to be a 4-time marathon runner next week. I'm like, what? You're about to be a 4-time marathon runner? This is the first time John's hearing about it? Oh, that doesn't have anything to do with my work. It doesn't? Seemed like you're getting a little mature to me. What does a 4-time marathon runner communicate? Energy, drive, unstoppable, really good at hitting goals, probably really good at controlling my healthcare costs. They really think about it all. So we have to think about it as well. As you begin to chameleon your way over, you have to answer this: who are you? What makes you tick? Now, I think it's such an important element in decision process, buying process. I even have this answer up on my own Self-Recruiter website. I have my Instagram as a drop-down menu right from my Self-Recruiter website. And you might go, well, what's there, John? Click. Nothing about what I do professionally is there. Really, everything about what I do in my non-professional life, the things that drive me, make me tick, hiking up the Hudson Valley, or hiking Half Dome out in Yosemite, or almost dying out in the California desert a year and a half ago at 108 degrees. Whole another story there. All of this is about influence, because when people hire you or buy from you, same type of decision, yes, they want you to be capable, qualified, good fit for the task, but we also want to get you, because I'm likely to spend more time with you than my waking life, or more time with you than my loved ones, in my waking life. Think about becoming this self-recruiter, this person that's going to take control, the person that's going to help you reinvent. It's all the person steering the ship, and they'll help you with your personal branding. Discover that story, distill it down to the very most valuable pieces, carry it across the resume, your LinkedIn profile. By the way, those two, in my view, should be polar opposites. Check out my resume renovation lecture, where I'm a firm believer your resume has to be a single sheet of paper in all cases. I don't care if you're CEO and CFO and COO and all that in your background, 30 years of endless, fits on a single sheet of paper, or we just don't know how to edit. Let them jump out of their chair when they see your background. Polar opposite to that is, how do we take that single page of excitement, the essence and value of your career on that single sheet of paper, in this case, the transferable skills that can go to a new direction. How do we take that over to LinkedIn, maybe as the skeletal system, structural backbone, but then add back all the, not the dull stuff, but the interesting parts of the story, until you have a full 3-dimensional sales brochure about yourself. That's the LinkedIn side. Of course, all these other things here represent opportunity to push your brand as well. Check out the resume renovation lecture. It will help you a lot. You have to add clarity. We're in a world where no one will read. So yes, they have to be able to look at it in the brain. Look at it in the brain. Small changes change perception. Your LinkedIn profile, same thing. When you get them over here, this is a sales brochure. Make sure it's visual. Make sure you are represented, and hopefully maybe even a few visuals where they can look over your shoulder, really seeing what you're reading, doing, sharing, attending, what excites you about your career. Over on my Self-Recruiter webpage, about halfway down the page, there's a very special version of my LinkedIn lecture where you can see me large or the slides large. Really, you can use it as a start and stop tutorial. Signature block, probably the most overlooked piece of personal branding. As we begin to transition, you certainly have to recast yourself so they're automatically thinking of you a different way. We do that with our signature block. At the bare minimum, get them to connect with you. Connect with me on LinkedIn at... should travel with your sales brochure. Every business email we ever send again for the rest of our lives travels with your sales brochure. Just like that. And of course, provides email, contact, all that other stuff. Portfolio, if you have it, a few other things. Of course, there's my ridiculously long email signature. Grew up Catholic, riddled with guilt when I first wrote this. My gosh, I'm like, oh, what would my mother think? I'm like, wow, John, looks like you made it. Yeah, absolutely. I've earned it. I own it. I need to use it. You have to, modesty and humility. I joke a lot about us all not being Kardashians. We have to drink a little bit of that, just a tiny bit. You have to give yourself permission to get past whatever's holding you back. The modesty and humility, we can nurture those for the other areas of our life, but in job search and in our career, no modesty and humility. You must stand up and claim what is due you. Very important. Now, once you have the right story across your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your cover letter, in your messaging, even in your signature block when you go to send someone a personal or business email from any device, they all take signature blocks. Then we have to use some influential digital marketing tools. The primary thing we're going to do is we're going to take our built out LinkedIn profile, which is a great sales brochure, but it's sitting right now over in a dusty rack, which no one is touching. We need to get that brochure in front of people with a marketing campaign. Check out my career evolution, preparing for your career's next leap with social media marketing. That's really my part 2 to my LinkedIn lecture. Once I have the right LinkedIn profile, how do I use it as an actual marketing tool? How do I build and run a marketing campaign? Check that lecture out. It will help you a lot. It's career evolution. Twitter, almost lose it every time I mention Twitter. I don't mean that 158 tweets over the weekend type thing. What I mean is let's double our advertising. Every time you share something, that's someone looking over your shirt to see what you're reading, doing, sharing, attending. What are you interested in? Which better be that new direction, of course, not the current direction. Why not cut your Twitter to your LinkedIn? And with one simple toggle, even on the free version, I only use the free version. Why don't you, whatever you put on LinkedIn, let it seamlessly flow out to Twitter where it can be searched for. Facebook, maybe, but not for most people. Maybe 2, 3, 4% of my clients use Facebook for career. Takes a very high degree of self-editing, no fun stuff, none of that stuff. Lots of other tools. You have to think about which ones you're going to manage so they do not take your entire time. As an example, I spend between 10 and 20 minutes per day on LinkedIn, and this is what I do for a living. It's not about getting it to absorb your time. It's using it effectively. Information is the new currency. And I talk a lot about this in my LinkedIn lecture, but normally it is from the perspective of how you extract information from LinkedIn. Oh, that's the building your professional network with LinkedIn and how to use it for your job search lecture. That's the part 1 to LinkedIn. Part 2 is the career evolution. But today is really about how we extract information from LinkedIn and then choose how we will seed information back into it. So part of the reinvention process is to go extract, do your homework, go look at competitors, go look at the desired companies, go look at different people that may hold those roles you might like in the new direction. And now we have to go back and put together a campaign to seed information, how we're so similar in skill set or approach or whatever we might do. Part of how we slowly chameleon our way over there, like I was talking about a little earlier. Now, here's my connections from earlier in the month, 11,894. 3 levels out, that gives me a pool of better than 21 million people. When I share something, I don't know where it's going to land. In fact, they won't actually tell me. If they did tell you, you would just try to game the system. But you know what? I'm going to teach you how to game the system with blindfolds on. So really, let's figure out how to do this. We're going to hit the chessboard and we're going to do a little strategic sharing that will change everything. Now, I do want to reinforce the concept that if you're looking for work, if you'd like to be employed, you need to be on Twitter. There it is. Twitter too, please. Notice how what you're about to see seamlessly start flowing across the screen here. These are all different shares that I have done over time. Yes, these are all about me and what I do. You're going to be sharing very likely articles, books, events, things about different players in the new industry, different players in the new direction, different challenges in the new direction. Sure. Imagine all of that is seamlessly flowing all the time across both networks. That has a very branding effect to you. Yeah, I know I'm in most of these pictures because I'm a public speaker, but you don't really need to be in your own pictures. An occasional one might be nice. It's really about, letting them live vicariously so they know that, my gosh, you have your finger on the pulse of your field. Think about how a small little campaign over a very short amount of time changes perception very, very quickly. In job search, I'm a big believer in sharing 4, 5, or 6 times per day. Detailed plans on how to make a social media share plan are right in my career evolution lecture. So check that out, Career Evolution, preparing for your career's next leap with social media marketing. Parts of it are here though. So really, as I look at each platform, I've got to decide, why am I using this platform? I must have some strategy, some method to the madness. What are your goals for that platform? And I sure hope your target markets are using it, because if they're not, we're wasting our time. Think through every level about it, because it's not only about nuance, but it is about influence. Now, a little bit behind the scenes on this social media share plan. These are some of the details out of a Career Evolution lecture. There's many more over there, so check it out. The basics are simple. We're going to sit down. Once we've invented the new us, we've put it across the resume, put it across LinkedIn. Now we're simply going to build a social media share campaign of 25 to 30 items. We go to Google, click the news tab, and really we begin to look for those articles first. We put in all sorts of keywords for the new direction. Who are the players in the new direction? Who are the competitors in the new direction? What are the challenges in the new direction? What you will find is all sorts of articles from all over the country, somehow connected to journalists that then are writing all about this new field. Those articles, by the way, don't have to be perfect. They just have to touch on the right subject. Good, bad, or ugly, doesn't matter. You're going to correct that with a few words of commentary. Maybe best practices for exactly what I do with a link. Okay, that's what I'm sharing. Couldn't disagree more with best practices for exactly what I'd like to do with a link. An interesting take on best practices for exactly what I'd like to do with a link. Or couldn't agree more with best practices for exactly what I do with a link. Disagree, agree, ride the fence, doesn't matter, but you have to take some opinion. If you take no opinion, it has no stickiness to you. So the article's quality really doesn't matter so much. It is really, is the titling, is the subject matter in the right field, in the right space, and then just react to it. So I'm going to do that for books. I'm going to do that for events, Barnes & Noble, Amazon for books and events. Every event in the next 30, 60, 90 days already has a website and all that going on. So that's really great. And then simply wake up and if I build this whole list in 2 hours of homework, then I wake up in the morning and 4 to 6 times like breathing, copy, paste, share. First cup of coffee, copy, paste, share, second cup of coffee. Lunchtime, copy, paste, share. Afternoon coffee hound, copy, paste, share. Even at the end of the day, copy, paste, share 4, 5, 6 times a day in 2 minutes, like breathing, if you do the actual homework. So we have to think about all the different things we might want to do. Yes, we're trying to tell a story. We're trying to showcase our skills and our assets because we're going to a new direction. You have to give yourself permission to have rose-colored glasses. I still has to be truthful, still truthful, but it's not confessional. And grew up Catholic, you know all about that. It's not confessional, so a little bit of rose-colored glasses. And the tone is like you're talking to a dear old friend. I haven't seen in 5 years. Very warm, welcoming. Yeah, that's the right tone. Educate that person. Your job is to set the stage. Have them look in your eyes. Have them be excited about what you bring to the table. Those same ordinary people they could always hire, they're always there. You're different. You're exceptional. You bring a passion for them, their field, their function, whatever it might be. You have to think about that. Small little figurative nudges. We're going to coax some engagement, but that engagement is always much, much closer to this type of engagement because job search is a dating process. There's no way around it. It's a dating process. So even when you move into interview, I hope you're ready for what they're naturally going to say. Well, you don't have any background in this field. You've never held this job before. Did you forget that they're actually interviewing you? They would not waste oxygen. So I expect them to go, you don't have this, you don't have that. Giving me a platform to talk about it. Little nudge, nudge, nudge. Your job is not to go in there and be selected. Oh, I hope they like me. Nonsense. Let's go in there and teach them how to select you. As an example of the effect of a social share plan, here are a few of my shares. Let me just bring these a little bit larger. I can go a little smaller. You can see them a little bit better. So yes, these are mostly about what I'm doing. Here I am up at Rainbow Push Wall Street project, up on stage with the Reverend Jesse Jackson. Did that 4 or 5 years. Very, very interesting. Then here I am over at the Google keynote during Social Media Week. I wasn't speaking, but I was invited by a radio show host for an 8 o'clock in the morning keynote, and then they didn't show up during my busiest month of the year. But that was interesting, and I got a great story out of it. Or some different articles that aren't uplifting, but exactly right for what I do. Or up at WHCR Voice of Harlem Radio, but up there 4 or 5 times. That's always a lot of fun. 2 hours of drive time. I love it, love it. Or up in Albany, top right, has nothing to do with what I do professionally, because the New York Public Library does not pay me. That's volunteer work. So here I am up in Albany on behalf of the library, lobbying for library funds for the library. That's the social safety net for society. Or getting featured in AM New York, always fun. Or here, breaking the regular scheduled lecture attendance for any regular library event. That was always fun. I'm very competitive. Featured a few more times and all sorts of fun stuff. You realize very quickly it changes perception. Yeah, this one, I thought I was getting punked. Got that call going, you're in Essence Magazine this month. I'm like, who is this? Well, you know what? I went out and found Essence Magazine. Barack was on the cover, a little hard to find. And there's my book right on the reading list. So see the shorter gal right there? She's the one that got me in there. Standing outside the New York Public Library, she suddenly goes, oh, I'm blogging about my job search for Essence Magazine. Oh my gosh, you should have my book. I can connect the dots really, really quickly. And gosh, there's my book on the reading list. And there she is in that picture talking to some other career coach. Learn to open doors. Life is not transactional. We tend to look at it in a transactional way. But if you approach life as transactional, like, okay, but if I do this, what do I get? I don't know. But I do know what you're going to get if you keep doing the same thing you have been doing. So we have to really drink a little bit of that Kool-Aid, put the modesty and humility aside and get on that promotion bandwagon. That's the self-promotion bandwagon, because it's all about influence. As distasteful as we may find that, we have to do it. A few more shares, Morgan Stanley event. So I shared that picture, doing something at Grace Institute, another wonderful organization. Here I am doing my online boot camp now, getting ready to take that online permanently. Really, it's going to be this wonderful place to really invigorate your career. Oh, look, 545 views. Saw my father in that pose all the time as a Catholic deacon. I know I love that shot. Up at WHCR Voice of Harlem Radio. Didn't make it into the shop. My coffee and my book certainly did. 2 hours drive time. No script. Totally off the cuff. A lot of fun. Small changes change perception. Step up to the challenge. Reinvent your story. Figure out why your skill set could be valuable to someone else, and take that skill set and persuade them and sell it to them. They're tired of all the mediocre people that are really surrounding them. If you've got some passion for their company, their new direction, let's go demonstrate it. Let's get right to that decision maker, and let's introduce ourselves with the new us, with this new costume, makeup, staging, lighting, everything else. Make sure they see us as their future. That's going to help us. Take your first step wherever you are in your process of inventing yourself or reinventing yourself, and learn how to repeat, 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 repeat. Appreciate you guys for joining in today. This is Charting Your Career Transition, really how you take all of the things you may have done for other industries, other companies, other backgrounds, understand the essence of that value, repurpose it toward direction, find your love for the new direction, reach out to them, and introduce passion, which would be irresistible. Thank you guys for joining in. If you need help lifting your career brand, all my services are over on the Self Recruiter website. Just click the services tab. You can see everything there. And if you're not sure which package is really the right one for you, send me a quick email, not through LinkedIn, but send me a quick email directly. That's john@selfrecruiter.com. And we will set up a time to talk. Look for my typically Friday series called Ask Self Recruiter, which is a live stream Q&A. Next one will be coming up this Friday. Whole resource library of the first 13 episodes are over on the YouTube channel. all sorts of those questions that you'd love. Now, if you're not getting your job search questions answered, send them in. Send them in to ask@selfrecruiter.com. That's ask@selfrecruiter.com. The very best ones also always included. Thank you guys for tuning in. Now, if you're joining me over on Facebook or Twitter, or you might be following the link back from Twitter, you could be watching over on YouTube. You could also be watching on LinkedIn. Wherever you're watching, I hope you hit the bell, like, subscribe, share it with friends, all that kind of fun stuff. Leave a comment or two, and always it's appreciated. See you soon. Take care.